everybody, this is the Wikstrand. So, this is my hotel here in Paris, and this is going to be a bit of a chaotic review, I think, because of all the traffic and stuff like that going on here. Another thing that is kind of chaotic is this movie, in some sense. The Texas Chain Saw Massacre is, by and large, one, if maybe not the first, slasher movie that was ever made, and Tobe Hopper basically created an entirely new genre of movies on an absolute shoestring budget using mostly amateurs. I think that this movie has a lot of upside to it. It has a lot of downside to it too. Well, we'll get to that in a second. So is this movie worthy of its status as a cult classic? We shall see, because this is the Texas Chain Saw Massacre. Reports have come in that Sally's grandfather's tombstone has been violated, so she goes to check this out together with her brother and some friends of theirs, then they want to check out the houses where they grew up in and stuff like that. But this is merely just an excuse for them to be hunted by the chainsaw wielding cannibal family that just happens to live in the nearby vicinity, as you do. And as the tagline says, who is going to survive and what is going to, be left of them. The Texas Chain Saw Massacre isn't exactly a complicated movie. It is about as basic as you can get and about as bare bone as you can get when it comes to the slasher genre. That doesn't make this a bad movie, however. I have talked about in the past how I do not like the slasher movies at all. But I think this movie benefits vastly because how old it is, and the tropes in this movie are quite new. But the Texas Chain Saw Massacre holds a very special place for me, especially as a Swedish man, because this was reportedly the most vile, disgusting, violent movie that had ever been made, and there were talks about it on the on TV and stuff like that, and it was banned and what have you. So for comparison's sake, this movie was completely banned, but Solo and the 120 Days of Sodom was completely uncut. That is some bullshit right there, I think, but let's not dwell on that one too long. The movie. I watched this movie for the first time like 2002, 2003, getting this uncut version of the UK or something like that, and I found it to be very not gory, actually. It was kind of fascinating to me because I actually think that this movie has a lot of violence in it, but it doesn't have any gore, because most of the violence actually takes place on a bit of a distance. You can barely make it out, or you can feel it. I think that is why people reacted so much to it when it came out, because the violence was extremely brutal, but at the same time they kind of shy away from it. They kind of show it from a distance, which makes the violence even more violent, I think. The same technique they basically did in the movie Salo or the 120 Days of Sodom. You saw the stuff happening a little bit in the distance, which made you a participant, which made you a witness, which made you very, very uncomfortable. I think that was a very smartly done move, in fact. So the movie is essentially pick off the red shirts until only one person remains, and then the chase is on for the rest of the movie. And I like that as a concept. The problem is that it takes pretty long time before this movie actually gets going. It has a lot of build-up to do, and build-up is very important, but sometimes you have to fill those build-up sequences with, I don't know, something interesting. And I didn't really think that this movie didn't have that much, in the build-up sequence. But you are really uncomfortable the moment things start to go sideways. The movie isn't really scary in the way that you're jumping out of your seat because of jump scare and stuff like that. This movie is pretty jump scare free, but except for the thing where Leatherface just shows up right out of nowhere and kills somebody with a chainsaw. in the middle of the night. But apart from that, this movie isn't really a jump scare fest. But the thing is that it is so uncomfortable to watch because the movie is so grimy, the movie is so dirty, the movie is so raw and unapologetic to it. It isn't clean, it isn't well produced, it is kind of murky, and that makes the movie feel even more raw and brutal. The many sequels that have been made over the years and the many remakes that have been made over the years has just shown us one thing. Pouring more money into a movie like this doesn't help it. It would have ever helped in this case to have some better actors, because Tobe Hooper really only used, very local, kind of unexperienced actors that has, in some cases barely ever, stepped in front of a camera. And let's just say it isn't, Daniel Day-Lewis or Meryl Streep that's running around in Texas and being chased by a family of inbred cannibal lunatics. But now I think about it, I want to see that more than anything else ever. Make that happen, Hollywood. Hooray! Should you see the Texas Chain Saw Massacre? Yes, I think you should. Mostly because of its historical value. I think that for a person who doesn't really like slashers that much, like myself, for a person that doesn't really like slashers, I think that this is about as good as you can get it from a storytelling perspective, because of its intensity, because of how extremely, hard and raw and uncomfortable everything is, because you really feel like you're there, you're really rooting for that somebody's gonna get out of this one alive. So it's a job well done, but as I said, the acting is horrendously bad, and before the third act really kicks in, this movie has a lot of problems with the pacing, because sometimes the thing moves like fucking erosion. It is an experience to watch this movie the first time, and the ending is absolutely brilliant. It isn't a perfect movie, but it is exactly what it needed to be in order to create something new. I don't know if the Texas Chain Saw Massacre created a slasher genre per se, but I think that it is one of the better ones that has been made in this genre, and that has to account for something. Raw, brutal, uncomplicated. I love the atmosphere this movie creates, and I love the style that this movie has. People have been trying to analyze this movie, to try to come up with different themes and different ideas and different, hidden messages and stuff like that. But I don't think there is any hidden messages in this movie. I just think that Tobe Hooper wanted to make an uncomplicated, raw, brutal, and very atmospheric horror movie, and nothing else. I give this movie 68 points. It is a good movie, but as I said, the acting is very subpar, and this movie, as I said, takes some time getting going, but the ending is absolutely great, and the third act is absolutely everything a great slasher should have. Plus, they didn't have any sequel baiting fucking bullshit technically in this one, so I like it for that. The Texas Chain Saw Massacre is also responsible for creating the mute masked monster that has been the staple of slasher movies ever since. Leatherface is by no means the most memorable, but maybe he was the first. So it has that going on for itself. So we'll see you next time for so-and-so reviewing, such and such. Thank you for watching. Thank you very much.